time for the science news. This week in 1784, a person called Vincenzo Lunardi gathered an enormous crowd around him, which included the Prince of Wales, filled a hot air balloon with hydrogen gas and became the first person to fly in England using this mode of transport. 1784. He took with him a dog, a cat and 2 pigeons. I don't know what they can fly. It doesn't matter. He was supposed to take his friend, George Biggins, with him, but then just as they were about to take off, the balloon turned out to be a little bit too heavy. So Vincenzo made his mate George get out, in front of the crowd, but still took the pigeons. He kept a journal of his journey, so we know that he nearly hit some houses and had to throw one of his oars overboard that he used for steering. So then he went a bit off course, went too high, ended up with icicles on his jacket and had to drink warming drinks and snuggle the dog to stay alive. Sounds like a great evening. And the cat had such a terrible time that he had to fly really low and toss it overboard to a friend. I don't know what happened to the pigeons. This week, scientists revealed a handheld computer they've invented, which is powered by the sun and the energy you give it by jabbing the buttons. So this thing is designed to recognise ancient computer games from a machine called the Game Boy, which means that now you don't need a plug socket or batteries to play the greatest computer game on the planet, aka Tetris. So how it works is, all the buttons have got little magnets on them, and when you push a button, it pushes that little magnet through a coil of wire, and if you push a magnet through a coil of wire crazily, that makes a current flow through the wire. Now, it has a few limitations. You can only play computer games where you frantically jab buttons, and also you can only play it for 10 seconds at the moment, and then you have to wait 1 second for it to reboot. But still, I'm going to just go out there and say it's probably better than anything any of us have invented this week. And finally, amazing, massive news from the group of scientists with the best name this week. Astrobiologists have been studying Mars for years, and finally this week they announced that they might have found something which indicates there might be life on Venus? We were not expecting any signs of life on Venus. According to the website Science Daily, Venus's surface is a scorching hellscape with sulfuric acid rain and crushing atmospheric pressures. But actually, 30 miles up, although all the chemicals are different, the pressures and temperatures of Venus are actually quite similar to Earth. So scientists discovered a lot of a gas called phosphine. So on Earth there are microbes which give off phosphine. Some of them are in your gut right now, or they live in swamps and sewage. So scientists are saying that there might be microbes up on Venus. Now, they haven't said definitely. They're having to rule out every other option first, but they can't immediately think of anything else that it might be. If you saw my black holes lesson, you remember the virtual telescope they made, which was pretty much the size of the planet. They used one of those telescopes to detect the phosphine, and then they thought, oh, that can't be right. So they tested it with another one of those telescopes and discovered that, yeah, the phosphine is there. Weird. Okay, and thus ends the science news. You know what it's time for now, don't you? Dinosaur discovery of the week. Come with me. I am going to tell you the story of a dinosaur discovery, and you are going to have to try and guess what dinosaur it is. There's actually quite a lot of mysteries in our dinosaur discovery of the week. 100 million years ago, parts of the Sahara Desert were covered in rivers. Rivers with soft, muddy bottoms, perfect for giving dead dinosaurs a nice comfy landing and burying them for millions of years. In the early 1900s, someone called Ernst Stromer searched for fossils in North Africa with a team of people, And he noticed our first mystery, something weird. In North Africa, there seemed to be a lot more meat-eating dinosaurs than herbivores. More meat eaters, more carnivores than vegetarians. That is very weird, because usually herbivores feed, like the meat eaters live off the herbivores. So you'd think there'd be a lot of herbivores, because what are the carnivores eating? Anyway, Ernst found an amazing skeleton. He actually found 2 partial skeletons of our dinosaur. Its biggest clue here, it's still the biggest meat eater that we know of that ever lived. But it was weird. It had a very long jaw. It was almost a metre long, but it was very narrow. It didn't look like it could have crushed a bone. It also had teeth like a crocodile and very, very weird back legs, which didn't look like they would have been strong enough to support its weight. What is going on with this thing? It also had a 6-foot sail on its back. So his dinosaur was displayed in a museum in a beautiful German city called Munich. Crowds flocked to see it. Ernst and his dinosaur were famous. And then World War II started. And Ernst begged the museum's director to move the fossils out of the city for safety, but the guy refused. And then Ernst's worst fears came true, because the city was bombed and there was nothing left of Ernst fossils except some sketches that he'd drawn. A few decades later, a little boy called Nizar Ibrahim, he saw a drawing of our dinosaur in a children's book, and it was love at first sight. So he studied dinosaurs at university, and then he went to a Moroccan town on the edge of the Sahara Desert to look for fossils. Now there, he met a fossil hunter who sold him some beautiful fossils. He knew that they were dinosaur bones. He didn't really know anything else, but they were lovely. They were trapped in beautiful purple rock that had very unusual white streaks in it. And the next year, Ibrahim was amazed when he went to the Natural History Museum in Milan and found that they'd just been sent our dinosaur a skeleton even better than the one he'd seen in his picture book. Of course, it was a Spinosaurus, and this one was trapped in purple rock with yellow streaks. What? Ibrahim realised that his fossils must be part of the same dinosaur skeleton. So he decided something which seems pretty crazy, really. He thought he'd go back to the desert and look for the fossil hunter who'd sold him the fossils and try and track down the rest of the skeleton, because you see, he had a chance to solve a big Spinosaur mystery. You can see here clearly the tail of this Spinosaurus is missing. No one had ever discovered a Spinosaurus tail, and the tail would reveal a great mystery. So he looks and looks and looks for this fossil hunter guy for days and days and days, and finally he says, very depressed, he's sitting in a cafe on his last day thinking, I'm never going to find him, what a useless waste of time this was, when suddenly, who walks by the cafe? Yeah, the fossil hunter. So the fossil hunter remembered him and said, oh yeah, no, those bones that I gave you, I did find the rest of the skeleton later and I sent it to an Italian museum. So Ibrahim says, well, can you tell me, can you show me where you found the skeleton? And the fossil hunter understandably says, no, I can't, that's how I make my money. Which would be the end of the story, but Ibrahim speaks Arabic. So he speaks to the guy in his own language, and he explains that if he can find the tail of this dinosaur, then the fossil will be returned to Morocco and displayed in a museum. And the man listens in silence, and then he says, yeah, okay. Isn't that amazing? I don't even know this guy's name. It's just fossil hunter in all the research I've done. But if he hadn't agreed to take Ibrahim to where the skeleton was, we wouldn't have discovered this incredible thing about a Spinosaurus. So anyway, Ibrahim finds the dinosaur's tail. Bone after bone after bone. He has never seen a dinosaur tailbone like this. And the secret of the Spinosaurus is revealed. Its tail is basically a massive fin. So there you go. It didn't need to walk on its back legs because it spent most of its time swimming. It didn't need to crush bones like other dinosaurs did because it ate mainly fish. And that's maybe why we haven't found many vegetarian dinosaurs in North Africa, because Spinosauruses, meat eaters like this one, We're living off the 25-foot sawfish that lives in the rivers. So the lesson of this epic tale is don't give up on your dreams, learn a language, and Spinosauruses. Making weirdness cool since 97 million BC. Now, the subject of today's show is actually resonance. So let's do that. Let's do an activity and learn all about resonance. Okay, so this follows on nicely from what we did last week. So we talk a lot about how everything in the whole world is made of particles, atoms. And last week we learned that when they get energy, like when you heat them up, they move around more, okay, and they spread out. But actually, nearly everything has a temperature, so everything is always vibrating a little bit, and we call this the object's natural frequency. Now the best way to explain this is I have made a little, pretend this is a swing. I made a little swing here. It's just a bit of string with a spoon hanging off it. So if I give it a push, then that is this spoon and string's natural frequency. See, it's kind of vibrating from side to side. If you want a really good sciencey word, you say that it's oscillating. That just means moving from side to side rhythmically. So you can see this swing's natural frequency. But we're learning about resonance. Resonance is if another thing is also vibrating at a thing's natural frequency and gives it a little push. So if you've ever pushed a swing, you've done this. I'm going to push this swing at its natural frequency, and if I do that, then it swings a bit more. It makes it resonate. It makes its vibrations bigger. Now, if you watched my music or my sound lesson, one of those, you would have seen me playing with a wine glass. This is a really good trick which demonstrates resonance absolutely beautifully. If you slightly wet your finger and you move it around just the right kind of wine glass. Isn't that gorgeous? What is going on there? What is happening? What is happening is my finger is sticking to the particles of glass and then pulling them and making them vibrate more. And I'm doing that and that is making the particles vibrate at the glass's natural frequency. So I'm making it resonate. I'm basically giving it a little push. Isn't that gorgeous? So you might have seen cartoons where opera singers sing really loud, high notes and break glass. You can actually do that. I mean, you probably can't and I can't, but it is possible. First of all, you've got to hit the note which has a frequency, like you have to make a sound wave which has the same frequency as the glass's natural vibrations, so you've probably got to sing quite high. And also, you've got to sing really loudly, in the same way that I could push a swing with its natural frequency, but if I only give it a tiny little push, it doesn't do very much. You'd have to sing really loudly so that your sound wave had a lot of force as well, enough force to smash the glass. But if you look up Mythbusters on YouTube, they have done it, so it is possible to do that. But that's a bit like some wine glasses work and some wine glasses don't work. But I wanted you to do an experiment that definitely would work. So we are going to make a balloon resonate. So what you have to do is you just need a 50p or 20p, something with edges. Put that inside the balloon. What you're going to see next is my getting a 50p inside a balloon face. It's quite hard. I didn't have a 20p. There we go. Alright. And then blow it up. Now it's up to you. If you want to, you can tie it because that is easier. But if you want to be able to recycle your balloon, already out of breath. Then you can just hold it in hand. So I'm going to do some sort of weird twisty round your hand move so that I don't have to tie it. Because I'm a cheapskate and I care about the planet. So you've got a 50p or a 20p in a balloon. What you have to do is give it a spin, you might need both hands, and see if you can get the 50p or the 20p rotating inside the balloon. And then press your ear against the balloon and see what happens. If you haven't got a balloon, you can listen to mine, it's pretty good. You can force things to resonate if you push them hard enough. But you can hear, I think, when this 50p starts moving at exactly the right way to get the balloon to resonate at its natural frequency. It's when it's a bit lower there, I think. How nice is that? If you put your ear to it, it's even better. So that is the balloon elastic resonating. But resonance is everywhere. When you tune a radio, you're just tuning it so that the radio resonates at the same frequency as the radio wave that you want to pick up. You might have heard of MRI scans, which we use to look inside people's bodies. Magnetic resonance imaging. Magnetic resonance imaging. What MRI scans are doing is sending radio waves towards the atoms in your body and making the middle of the atoms, the hydrogen atoms mainly, resonate. Isn't that, I mean, hear work now. You can send radio waves into people's bodies and make individual particles resonate, and that gives us information. It's crazy. Even the Earth resonates. Like all the storms and lightning that are going on are generating magnetic fields which have a certain natural frequency. The NASA website describes it as the atmosphere having a heartbeat. Isn't that lovely? Now you don't always want things to resonate. Sometimes you want the opposite. Like when this swing is moving, you'll see that if I push it in the wrong way, then it stops moving, I take away the energy and I damp it, like car suspension. You don't want a car to be naturally resonating when you're inside it, you want the opposite. So cars have suspensions to like absorb the energy. Right, that's enough for me, innit? You know what time it is, don't you? It's time for story time! I'm so excited about this. I'm always excited about story time, but yeah, I'm pretty happy about this one of my favourite tales. It is 1999. In London, the authorities have been racking their brains to think of a great way to commemorate the year 2000, the Millennium. And they come up with something which everyone loves the idea of. They decide to build a new footbridge across the River Thames, connecting St Paul's Cathedral on the North Bank to the Tate Modern Art Gallery on the South Bank. If you're wondering what this is every picture of the Millennium Bridge available royalty-free online, stuck together with no apologies. It cost about £18 million, but everyone generally agreed it had been worth it. The design was very beautiful and it was also very unusual. The cables were carrying a lot more force than a normal bridge would. On June the 10th, the year 2000, a huge crowd gathered outside the Tate Modern for the opening ceremony. A band began to play and led the crowd onto the bridge. A very good paper I read by the Department of Engineering at Cambridge University called what happened next an unexpected pronounced lateral movement. We would call it swinging. Really quite bad swinging. Like embarrassing amounts of swinging. People had to stop moving and cling to the sides of the bridge to keep their balance. Whoops! The authorities quickly decided that they would limit the amount of people crossing the bridge at any one time. And that was definitely going to solve the problem. 2 days later, the bridge was closed to everyone. It didn't reopen again until the 22nd of February 2002. Happy Millennium, London. So, what had gone wrong? Well, engineers all over the country started trying to work it out. So, the day that the bridge had opened, the weather was particularly windy. And the engineers decided that definitely wouldn't have made the bridge vibrate enough to make it wobble. Because anyway, these people are professionals, you know. If you're building a bridge, you do loads of tests. They tested it for all kinds of things, like how much weight it could carry, And of course they'd test it to make sure that it would be okay in high winds as well. In fact, every non-human element about the bridge had been carefully tested. Pretty much the only thing that they hadn't tested for is what would happen if a huge crowd of people all walked in step with each other across the bridge, because that's not how people work, is it? They walk randomly, they don't walk in step with each other, do they? One of the people who ended up working on the Millennium Bridge problem was not an engineer. Steve Strogatz actually studies the science of crowds, and he told a website called Science Daily what had happened. So everything in the universe vibrates, wobbles just a little bit, not enough that you'd notice, but it turns out the Millennium Bridge was gently wobbling at almost exactly the same speed as humans walk. So when lots of humans walked in slightly different ways on the bridge, just some of them matched the bridge's vibrations. And just like when you give a swing, a little push, their walking made the bridge's vibrations just a little bit bigger. So then, people who hadn't been walking in step beforehand sort of found themselves on a gently moving swing, and without even thinking about it, they started to walk in step too to be more comfortable. And that gave the bridge even more of a push. And so the more of a push the bridge got, the more it started to swing, and the more it started to swing, the more people started to walk in step, until eventually they were swinging about 7 centimetres per second, which wouldn't make a very exciting playground ride, but for a 320 metre long bridge suspended over very cold water, it was quite alarming. Later tests that they did while the bridge was shut showed that 160 people would have been enough to make the bridge swing. And on the opening day, it had up to 2,000 people on it at any one time. So, how was the problem fixed? Science doesn't exist on its own, so if an engineer had been in charge of solving the problem, they would have probably just made the bridge a lot stiffer, because that would have made its natural vibration very different to humans walking, so it wouldn't have got a push. But this would have made the bridge look very different, not as beautiful, and this was totally unacceptable to people because this was a Millennium Bridge. So the engineers had to think of something else. In the end, they damped it. So when you play a guitar string, if you touch it with your finger, then you stop it vibrating, you take the energy away from it, and we call that damping. The engineers would have to build the equivalent of a giant finger to be touching the bridge at all times, and they'd have to test exactly how hard the finger would have to be touching to damp all the vibrations. It cost about £5 million, but they did it. And if you go to London now, you can walk across the Millennium Bridge, which stretches all the way from the Tate Modern to St Paul's. You will not see a giant finger, but if you know what you're looking for, you might see the engineering version. 37 linear viscous dampers and about 50 tuned mass vibration absorbers have been carefully hidden underneath and around the bridge. They took a lot of time and thought and money, and if you're into this kind of thing, you might find them as beautiful as the original design. That was Science Show Live with me, Lara, from Theatre of Science. Thank you so much for joining me. I have so much fun planning these, and it's really lovely reading all your comments. It really does make it. If you've never seen this before, then would very much appreciate you liking my page, Theatre of Science. You know, it doesn't matter, it's not a problem, whatever, like they're only numbers, but I've nearly got 10,000 followers and it would look so cool. So please like my page if you haven't already. All the lockdown lessons that I did are on YouTube, so if you want to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe to that and watch all those lessons, then that would be really cool as well. If you're really keen and you're coming every week and you want these to continue, then I've got a Patreon page where you can sign up with £3 or £5 or £10 a month, and you get little thank yous. Like if you give me £5 a month, then you get a magazine that I'm writing, like bi-monthly, and anyone who gives me anything gets sent some very cool rainbow glasses that I found. Yeah, I think that's it. Otherwise, just share. Thank you so much, people who are constantly sharing, because I'm really terrible at marketing. That's entirely reliant on you telling people about it, really. And it means more coming from you. I don't want to be just spamming these groups, do I? It means a lot more if you say, I've seen this and I actually like it. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week, Tuesday at 1:30. I do a kind of home editors show where we look at more sort of school-themed science. And every Thursday night at 6 and Sundays at 9:30, as you know, I am here doing this live show. Bye!